Before we begin, I just want to say that this video discusses a real and sensitive case involving abuse and loss of life. My intention is never to cause harm or distress, but to share these stories with care, respect, and awareness. Some details may be limited out of consideration for those involved, and I encourage you to watch with that in mind. And if this case feels like it may be too much for you, please feel free to click away and take care of yourself first. For those of you still here, thank you for being here. And with that said, let's begin. She was told she was sick, that she couldn't walk, that she needed constant care. And for years, everyone believed it. But behind closed doors, nothing was what it seemed. Because this wasn't just a story of illness. It was a story of control, deception, and a truth that would shock the world. This is the story of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Gypsy Rose Blanchard was born on July 27th, 1991, making her a Leo, in Raceland, Louisiana. Her parents are Dee Dee Blanchard and Rod Blanchard. Her parents separated before Gypsy was born, and from that point on, Gypsy was raised primarily by her mother. Rod remained in her life from a distance, providing financial support and maintaining contact where he could, but he was not part of her day-to-day upbringing. Gypsy is the only child to her parents. However, her father went on to have other children later on, so Gypsy does have half-siblings on her father's side. Gypsy's parents, Rod and Dee Dee, first met when he was in high school, and married when Dee Dee found out she was pregnant. He was 17 at the time, while Dee Dee was 24. Rod recalled how his marriage to Dee Dee quickly deteriorated by the time he turned 18. I woke up on my 18th birthday, and realized I wasn't where I was supposed to be. I wasn't in love with her, really. I knew I got married for the wrong reasons. When Gypsy was 3 months old, Dee Dee believed her daughter had sleep apnea and began taking her to the hospital. Repeated overnight stays with a sleep monitor and other tests found no evidence of the condition. Over time, Dee Dee asserted that Gypsy had a wide range of medical issues, which she attributed to an unspecified chromosomal disorder. In 2012, Gypsy was diagnosed with 1q21.1 deletion syndrome, which can increase the risk of delayed development, intellectual disability, physical abnormalities, and neurological and psychiatric problems. Additionally, Gypsy's former pediatrician, Dr. Rob Steele, confirmed in an interview that Gypsy had strabismus as an infant, which required surgery to correct and prevent blindness. However, Dee Dee became convinced that Gypsy was ill, eventually telling Rod that she believed their daughter had a chromosomal defect, and her health issues stemmed from that. During the first few years of her life, Gypsy was growing like a normal child. But by the time she was a toddler, Dee Dee, who worked as a nurse's aide, began claiming her daughter was sick. Dee Dee was saying that Gypsy was sick, had problems sleeping, epilepsy, and had just progressed from there. Rod Blanchard said, "All the visits. Dee Dee had to be there the whole time. Something never felt right about it. Dee Dee was so controlling. When Gypsy was 5 years old, her maternal grandfather made her and Dee Dee bathe with him. When she was 7 or 8, she was riding on her grandfather's motorcycle when they were involved in a minor accident in which she suffered an abrasion on her knee. By the time Gypsy was 8, her mother claimed Gypsy was suffering from leukemia, paralyzed muscular dystrophy. Gypsy was also using a wheelchair and now had a feeding tube. Gypsy did attend school when she was younger, but as the illnesses continued, she was taken out and taught at home isolated from the outside world. Gypsy frequently attended Special Olympics events with her parents. She was named the honorary queen of the crew of Mid-City, a child-focused Mardi Gras parade in New Orleans. At the event, she described herself as an animal lover with 4 cats and said her grandfather was her best friend. Dee Dee sustained a leg injury that Gypsy later recalled resulted from a car accident requiring a 2-month hospital stay. During this period, Dee Dee and Gypsy lived with Gypsy's maternal grandfather, Claude, for about 10 months. In her 2024 book, Gypsy accused Claude of abusing both her and her mother during this time. Around this period, Dee Dee began taking Gypsy to science fiction and fantasy conventions. They sometimes attended in costume, which allowed Gypsy to blend in. Gypsy appears to have stopped attending school after 2nd grade, possibly even earlier. Dee Dee homeschooled her thereafter, citing Gypsy's alleged illnesses. Gypsy has said she learned to read independently by reading the Harry Potter books. After Claude remarried, Dee Dee and Gypsy moved in with him and his new wife, Laura. Family members later alleged that Dee Dee poisoned Laura's food with Roundup weed killer, contributing to Laura's chronic illness during this period. According to relatives, when they confronted her about her treatment of Gypsy and raised concerns about Laura's health, Dee Dee left the household with Gypsy. The family said that Laura's condition improved afterward. Dee Dee and Gypsy settled in the New Orleans suburb of Slidell, where they lived in public housing. Dee Dee supported herself through child support payments from her ex-husband Rod, and through public assistance tied to Gypsy's purported medical conditions. She continued taking Gypsy to numerous specialists, primarily at Tulane Medical Center and the Children's Hospital of New Orleans. Some physicians provided treatment based on the conditions Dee Dee reported. After she told doctors that Gypsy experienced seizures every few months, they prescribed anti-seizure medication. During this period, Gypsy underwent surgery, and Dee Dee frequently took her to the emergency room for minor ailments. Dee Dee regularly consulted with Dr. Robert Beckerman, who was said to have treated Gypsy for 10 years. In August 2005, Hurricane Katrina ripped through Slidell, Louisiana, destroying Dee Dee and Gypsy's home. They eventually relocated to Springfield, Missouri, where Habitat for Humanity built them a small, wheelchair-accessible home. Dee Dee claims all of Gypsy's medical records were destroyed by Hurricane Katrina, including her birth certificate. This makes way for Dee Dee to lie about Gypsy's real age and medical history. The story of a single mother caring for a severely disabled daughter who had fled Hurricane Katrina drew considerable local media attention. The community frequently offered assistance to the family, and Dee Dee, now identifying as Claudinea Blanchard, continued to go by her longtime nickname. She also set up an outdoor movie screen at their home and charged neighbors $1 or $5 to watch films. Neighbors described Dee Dee as a friendly and caring woman. The community rallies around Dee Dee and Gypsy, showering them with gifts, cash donations, concerts, celebrity meet and greet, and a trip to Disney World from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Rod Blanchard continued to make monthly child support payments of $1,200, sent gifts to Gypsy, and occasionally spoke with her by phone. He later recalled that during one call on Gypsy's 18th birthday, Dee Dee told him not to mention her daughter's real age because she thinks she's 14. Rod and his second wife hoped to visit Springfield, but Dee Dee repeatedly changed plans. She allegedly told neighbors that Gypsy's father was an abusive drug addict and alcoholic who had never accepted his daughter's health issues and had never provided financial support. Many people who met Gypsy Rose were charmed by her. Her 5-foot height, nearly toothless mouth, large glasses, and high, childlike voice reinforced the perception that she had the medical problems her mother described. Dee Dee regularly shaved Gypsy's head to mimic the appearance of a chemotherapy patient, allegedly telling her that medication would eventually cause her hair to fall out and that shaving it in advance was easier. Gypsy often wore wigs or hats to cover her baldness. When they left the house, Dee Dee frequently brought an oxygen tank and feeding tube, and Gypsy was fed the children's liquid nutrition supplement, Pediasure, well into her 20s. Medical interventions continued. Dee Dee had some of Gypsy's saliva glands treated with Botox and later removed entirely to address her purported drooling. Gypsy later claimed that Dee Dee induced drooling by applying a topical anesthetic to numb her gums before doctor visits. Tum were implanted in Gypsy's ears to treat her many purported ear infections. At the age of 16, Gypsy developed an addiction to pain medication. In September 2007, Dr. Bernardo Flasterstein, a pediatric neurologist who examined Gypsy in Springfield, became suspicious of her reported muscular dystrophy diagnosis. He ordered MRIs and blood tests, which showed no abnormalities. He told Dee Dee he doesn't see any reason why she doesn't walk at a follow-up visit, observing Gypsy stand and support her own weight. Dr. Bernardo Flasterstein noted that Dee Dee was not a reliable historian. After contacting Gypsy's physicians in New Orleans, he learned that her original muscle biopsy had been negative, contradicting Dee Dee's claims of muscular dystrophy and her assertion that all medical records had been destroyed in flooding. He suspected the possibility of factitious disorder imposed on another. Dee Dee later obtained access to Dr. Bernardo Flasterstein's notes and stopped taking Gypsy to see him. Dr. Bernardo Flasterstein did not report Dee Dee to social services. He later said that other physicians advised him to treat the pair with golden gloves, and that he doubted authorities would believe him. In late October 2009, an anonymous caller informed police that Dee Dee used multiple names and birth dates for herself and Gypsy, and suggested that Gypsy was healthier than claimed. Officers conducted a wellness check, but accepted Dee Dee's explanation that she used false information to avoid an abusive ex-husband. Without contacting Rod, they concluded that Gypsy appeared genuinely mentally disabled, and the file was closed. Dee Dee appears to have forged at least one copy of Gypsy's birth certificate, altering the birth year to 1995 to support claims that she was still a teenager. Gypsy later said she was unsure of her real age for 14 years. Dee Dee sometimes claimed that the original certificate had been destroyed during post-Katrina flooding. She kept another copy with the correct birth date. Gypsy recalled seeing it during a hospital visit and becoming confused, and Dee Dee told her it was a misprint. In February 2011, at a science fiction convention, Gypsy attempted to escape. Her mother found her with a man named Dan, whom she had met online and arranged to meet at the event. Accounts of the incident differ. In one version, attendees who believed Gypsy was 15 and the man was 35 became concerned after finding her in his hotel room. Neighbors later said that Dee Dee produced paperwork with a false birth date and threatened to contact police, prompting the man to let Gypsy go. In the other version, Gypsy said she had learned she was actually 19 and planned to run away with Dan to Arkansas. She said she left a note for Dee Dee stating she wanted to be independent and hitchhiked at 2 a.m. to a friend's house, only to discover that Dan was on parole and could not leave the state. Gypsy said Dee Dee found her because she had left her phone behind. According to Gypsy, she returned willingly after Dee Dee promised she could continue the relationship. Gypsy alleged that afterward, Dee Dee smashed her computer and phone with a hammer and threatened to break her fingers if she tried to escape again. Gypsy claimed she was leashed and handcuffed to her bed, and that Dee Dee starved her for 2 weeks. Dee Dee later told her she had filed paperwork declaring Gypsy mentally incompetent, leading Gypsy to believe that police would not believe her if she sought help. In June 2011, Gypsy attempted another escape by shooting her mother 10 times with a BB gun, which she initially believed was a real firearm. Dee Dee told others that the injuries resulted from a robbery attempt at a nearby Walmart. Around this time, Gypsy hid from her mother to use the computer. She later said she shared sexually explicit images of herself online because it made her feel better about her appearance. In February 2012, police were called after Dee Dee and Gypsy were caught shoplifting $21.53 worth of arts and crafts items from a Hobby Lobby. The items had been hidden under Gypsy's legs in the wheelchair. Dee Dee told officers they had just returned from Disney World and planned to make a scrapbook, and that the theft was accidental. In October 2012, Gypsy, who continued using the internet after Dee Dee went to bed to avoid her supervision, made contact online with Nicholas Godejohn of Big Bend, Wisconsin, whom she said she met on a Christian singles website. Nicholas has an IQ of 82 and a history of mental illness, sometimes reported as dissociative identity disorder, and has autism spectrum disorder. Gypsy and Nicholas exchanged over 100 videos during their online relationship. In one video in which Gypsy is using one of her multiple personas, she says the following about the children they may have together. The plan for if we have a boy first, we're going to protect him and our children from the outside world, because they can't know about you being a vampire. If we have a girl the way it has to be, she has to lose her virginity to you because you are the master of the household. I will have to explain that to her when she's of an age where it's time to explain it, like not when she's 7, more like around 13. In 2014, Gypsy, who maintained 5 Facebook accounts, confided to her 23-year-old neighbor, Alea Woodmansey, that she flirted with Nicholas online and that their exchanges included BDSM elements, which Gypsy said reflected his interests more than hers. Alea considered herself a big sister to Gypsy, but later learned they were close in age. Gypsy and Nicholas discussed eloping and chose names for potential children. Alea tried to dissuade her, believing she was too young and possibly being manipulated by a sexual predator. She viewed Gypsy's plans as fantasies and dreams and did not think they would materialize, despite Dee Dee's alleged attempts to restrict her internet access, including destroying her phone and laptop, and allegedly locking her in a backyard shed. Gypsy maintained contact with Alea, who saved printouts of her posts, until 2014. The following year, Gypsy arranged and paid for Nicholas to meet her mother in Springfield. Her plan was for him to bump into them at a movie theater while they were in costume and then gradually form a relationship that Dee Dee would accept. When they met in person for the first time in March 2015, during a showing of Cinderella, Nicholas said Gypsy led him to a bathroom stall where they had sexual intercourse. Dee Dee does not approve of the relationship. Dee Dee got jealous because Gypsy was spending a little too much attention on Nicholas, and Dee Dee had ordered Gypsy to stay away from him. This ended up being a very long argument that lasted for a couple of weeks. It was at this point Gypsy decided she wanted her mother dead, not because she hated her. It was because she wanted to escape her mother. The two continued communicating online and began developing a plan to kill Dee Dee. Gypsy admitted she talked Nicholas into it, meaning the murder plot. Less than a month before the murder, Gypsy sent Nicholas a video of her walking into her mother's room, pointing at Dee Dee's pillow and making a stabbing motion. After receiving money that Gypsy had stolen and mailed to Nicholas to purchase a bus ticket, Nicholas returned to Springfield in June 2015, arriving a day after Gypsy and Dee Dee had been at the emergency room to have Gypsy's feeding tube replaced. That same day, after the two returned home from a Dollar General and Dee Dee went to sleep, Nicholas went to the Blanchard house. Gypsy let him inside and gave him duct tape, gloves, and a knife that she had shoplifted from Walmart, on the understanding that he would use it to kill Dee Dee. Gypsy hid in the bathroom and covered her ears so she would not hear her mother screaming, although Nicholas claimed she was shaving her legs. Nicholas stabbed Dee Dee 17 times in the back while she slept. Afterward, he claimed that he and Gypsy had sexual intercourse in her bedroom. Gypsy alleged that Nicholas raped her and that the encounter was non-consensual, saying she cried out for her deceased mother during the assault. Gypsy later told authorities she cleaned up some of her mother's blood using baby wipes. The pair took more than $4,400 in cash that Dee Dee kept in the house, largely from Rod Blanchard's child support payments. They fled to a motel outside Springfield where they stayed for several days while planning their next steps. During that time, they were recorded on security cameras at multiple stores. In a later interview, Niccolo said, "I felt horrible about it. When me and her were in the hotel room, Gypsy kept on telling me, 'Stop crying, stop crying. There's no reason to cry. It was my idea. It wasn't yours.' Gypsy comforted me about it. I prayed once I got here. I tried to get her mother's soul to forgive me." Gypsy said she believed at that point that they had gotten away with the crime. One taxi driver who picked the pair up said of Gypsy, "The girl looked 12, sounded 5, and had a 40-year-old attitude. She was not afraid to tell me off. I just knew there was something wrong." They mailed the murder weapon to Nicholas's home in Wisconsin to avoid being found with it, then took a bus there. In a video recorded by Gypsy of the pair in a hotel room the day after the murder, Gypsy can be heard laughing and says about Nicholas, "He's eating a brownie, but later he'll be eating me." After Facebook posts appeared on Dee Dee's account and phone calls went unanswered, several friends and neighbors went to the Blanchard home. Although the two often left for medical trips without notice, Dee Dee's modified car was still in the driveway, making that explanation unlikely. Protective film on the windows made it difficult to see inside in the low light. When no one answered the door, the group called 911. Police arrived, but had to wait for a search warrant before entering. They allowed a neighbor to climb through a window where he saw that the house was largely undisturbed and that Gypsy's wheelchairs were still present. Once the warrant was issued, officers entered the home and found Dee Dee's body. A GoFundMe account was created to help cover funeral expenses and, if necessary, costs related to Gypsy. Acquaintances feared that even if Gypsy had not been harmed, she would be helpless without her wheelchair, medications, and support equipment such as oxygen tanks and her feeding tube. Alea, who was among those gathered outside the home, told police what she knew about Gypsy's secret boyfriend and showed them the printouts she had saved, which included his name. Using that information, investigators traced an IP address to Wisconsin. The following day, law enforcement agencies in Waukesha County raided Nicholas's home in Big Bend. Nicholas and Gypsy surrendered and were taken into custody on charges of murder and felony armed criminal action. News that Gypsy was alive was met with relief in Springfield. where she and Nicholas were soon extradited and held on $1 million bond. In announcing the development, Greene County Sheriff Jim Arnott cautioned that things are not always what they appear. Local media soon reported that Gypsy had never been sick and had always been able to walk, but that her mother had allegedly forced her to pretend otherwise. The sheriff urged the public not to donate money to the family until investigators determined the extent of the fraud. An unsealed search warrant showed that Gypsy had at least 5 Facebook accounts. Nick told investigators Gypsy had so many different Facebook accounts he could not remember all of them. The accounts: Nicholas Godejohn, Nicholas Bella Rose, Snow Gypsy Blanchard, Gypsy's Trip, Praying for Dee Dee and Gypsy Bella Rose and Gypsy Rose, were requested for search, along with any additional accounts linked to Gypsy's email addresses. Previous warrants say friends told investigators Gypsy had alternate Facebook accounts under the names Emma Rose and Demona Loveslave, where she reportedly liked pictures of sadomasochism. After the disclosure of how Dee Dee allegedly treated Gypsy, public sympathy shifted from Dee Dee as the victim of a violent murder to Gypsy as a long-term victim of child abuse. Although first-degree murder can carry the death penalty or life without parole under Missouri law, County Prosecutor Dan Patterson announced that he would not seek the death penalty for either Gypsy or Nicholas, calling the case extraordinary and unusual. After Gypsy's attorney obtained her medical records from Louisiana, he secured a plea agreement for second-degree murder. Her lawyer told BuzzFeed that she had been so undernourished that she gained 14 pounds during her first year in the county jail, in contrast to most of his clients who typically lose weight. In July 2016, Gypsy accepted the plea deal and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Nicholas continued to face the more severe charge because prosecutors argued that he initiated the murder plot, and both he and Gypsy acknowledged that he killed Dee Dee. Prosecutors also pursued a harsher case against him due to his lack of involvement in the alleged abuse. Gypsy's plea agreement did not require her to testify against him. In January 2017, his trial was postponed after prosecutors requested a second psychiatric evaluation. His attorneys argued that he had an IQ of 82 and was on the autism spectrum, suggesting diminished capacity. He initially waived his right to a jury trial, but reversed that decision in June 2017. In an interview prior to his trial, Nicholas stated, "All the planning, she did every bit of it. She pretty much willed the knife in my hand to commit the deed herself. She is the mastermind behind the entire thing. As far as I'm concerned, she's as guilty as I am." In December 2017, the judge scheduled Nicholas's trial for November 2018. In opening statements, prosecutors alleged that he had deliberated for more than a year before the killing, while his defense argued that Gypsy had formulated the plan and that their client, who was autistic, acted out of infatuation. The next day, prosecutors presented text messages, some sexually explicit, that Gypsy and Nicholas exchanged in the week before the murder, often using alternate personas along with the knife used in the killing. In several messages, he asked for details about Dee Dee's bedroom and sleeping habits. Jurors also viewed video of his police interview in which he admitted to the killing. Gypsy testified on the third day of the trial. She said that although she suggested to Nicholas that he killed Dee Dee to end her mother's abuse, she also considered becoming pregnant by him in the hope that Dee Dee would accept him if she were carrying his child. She said she stole baby clothes from Walmart to prepare for either plan, but that Nicholas never told her what he thought about the pregnancy idea. After 4 days of testimony, the case went to the jury. Jurors were instructed that they could find Nicholas guilty of involuntary manslaughter, second-degree murder, first-degree murder, or not guilty. After approximately 2 hours of deliberation, they found him guilty of first-degree murder, an armed criminal action. In February 2019, he was sentenced to life in prison for the murder conviction, the only possible sentence since prosecutors had declined to seek the death penalty. He asked Judge David Jones for leniency on the armed criminal action charge, which carries a minimum sentence of 3 years, saying he had fallen blindly in love with Gypsy. He received a concurrent 25-year sentence. Judge David Jones also denied a motion for a new trial filed by Nicholas' attorney, Dwayne Perry. Duane argued that the jury should not have heard that Nicholas had considered raping Dee Dee on the night of the murder, and that the state's psychologist should not have been allowed to testify while the defense psychologist was excluded. Judge David Jones acknowledged that an appeals court might view the latter issue as significant and potentially reversible. At Nicholas's appeal hearing, videos were shown that depicted Gypsy emotionally manipulating him, and an instructional video demonstrating how to stab Dee Dee. Questions were raised about why these had not been used at trial. In late 2023, public defender Tyler Coyle filed an appeal seeking a new trial for Nicholas. No timeline has been set for when the courts will review the request. Neighbors were shocked to learn that Gypsy's illnesses had been fabricated. Alea Woodmansee, whose information about Gypsy's relationship with Nicholas helped police locate the pair the day after Dee Dee's body was discovered, said she cried in disbelief upon hearing that Gypsy had never been sick or disabled. Her mother recalled how readily everyone accepted Dee Dee's claims without asking for proof, and wondered whether Dee Dee and Gypsy had secretly laughed at their neighbor's naivete. Kim Blanchard, who is no relation to Dee Dee and Gypsy, who had called sheriff's deputies to the house the previous night, said, "What have I been believing? How could I have been so stupid?" More than 60 people attended a candlelight vigil for Dee Dee in downtown Springfield the night after her body was found. At a news conference, Sheriff Jim Arnott said of the case, "Springfield is a giving community. We surround people with love and finances that we believe that needs it. However, a lot of times we are deceived, and I think this is now so true in this case at hand." Only one of the charities that had assisted the Blanchards commented publicly after the revelations. A spokesman for Habitat for Humanity, whose volunteers built the Blanchards' home, said, "We are just really deeply saddened by the whole situation." Dee Dee's family in Louisiana, who said they had confronted her years earlier about her treatment of Gypsy, did not mourn her. Her father, stepmother, and the nephew who first revealed Gypsy's true health status when she began using a wheelchair, all later said that Dee Dee deserved her fate and that Gypsy had already been punished enough. None offered to pay for her funeral, and Dee Dee's father and stepmother claimed to have flushed her ashes down the toilet. In 2024, Gypsy said the ashes were still with her mother's family and asked that Dee Dee be buried with her own mother, as Dee Dee had always requested. Rod Blanchard, Gypsy's father, was more forgiving. "I think Dee Dee's problem was she started a web of lies, and there was no escaping after," he told BuzzFeed. "It was like a tornado that got started." He said he was happy the first time he saw a video of Gypsy walking on her own. Gypsy served her sentence at Missouri's Chillicothe Correctional Center and did not speak to the media until after accepting her plea. She told BuzzFeed reporter Michelle Dean that she had researched Munchausen syndrome by proxy, now known as a factitious disorder, imposed on another on prison computers, and believed her mother exhibited every symptom. "I think she would have been the perfect mom for someone that actually was sick," she said. She believed Dee Dee's claim that she had cancer, even though she knew she could walk and eat solid food, which led her to consent to regular head shaving. She said she always hoped doctors would see through the deception and was frustrated that only Dr. Flasterstein did. When asked what made her want to escape, Gypsy cited the 2011 science fiction convention incident, which made her question why she was not allowed to have friends like others her age. She has said she hopes to help other victims of abuse. On September 29, 2023, the Missouri Department of Corrections confirmed that Gypsy had been granted parole. She was released on December 28, 2023, in accordance with state law. On June 27, 2022, she married Ryan Scott Anderson, though the couple separated 3 months after her release from prison in March 2024. Gypsy and Ken Erker had originally met in 2017, when he began corresponding with her while she was incarcerated. They became engaged during a 2018 prison visit, but ended the relationship the following year. In April 2024, Gypsy resumed a relationship with Erker, and in 2025, the couple welcomed their first child. In March 2026, Gypsy sparked outrage when she created a TikTok video showing her making a joke about her involvement in the murder of her mother. She is now living in the United States, primarily in Louisiana, where she returned after her release. Since then, her life has changed a lot. She has been active on social media, sharing updates about her life. She appeared in interviews and a reality series about her life after prison. She is in a relationship with Ken Urker. In 2024, she welcomed her daughter, Aurora. She has spoken about focusing on healing, taking accountability, and adjusting to life outside of prison. As of 2026, Nicholas Godejohn is still in prison in the United States. He is serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole, plus additional time for armed criminal action. He is currently held at the Potosi Correctional Center in Missouri, where he has remained since his conviction. Since his sentencing, he has attempted to appeal his conviction, but these efforts have been denied, meaning he will remain in prison. This case is one that continues to divide opinion even today. It raises difficult questions about control, about truth, and about how far someone can be pushed. Some see this as a story of manipulation and abuse, while others see it as something much more complex. And perhaps that's what makes this case so unsettling, because sometimes the line between victim and responsibility isn't always clear. Thank you for watching Into the Night Stories, and as always, stay safe out there.